because I too have a really hard time asking for help. There will be points where, the people who are closest to me will be able to see that I need help with something. And they'll be like, you can ask for help, right? And I'm like, no, I can't.
Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
So the girls are fighting. I know I'm not the first person to have this take in the last week, but the Trump and Elon relationship seems to have blown up. And we really wanted to call this out because I had actually predicted on our year-end episode last year that I thought this moment would come, but I did not think it would come this soon. I thought that they would survive the calendar year 2025 before having their implosion, but it seems to have come much sooner. I guess Elon got in, got what he wanted, and got out. And now is basically publicly pinning all of the horrible shit that Doge did on Trump and his big, beautiful bill, which has, of course, pissed Trump off.
They seem to have made amends for now. Trump has said, I'm not planning on talking to him or seeing him again for a while. I'm hoping that Trump's people were like, you cannot get back with this man. We know you two fell in love for a while, but you got to let him go and you got to move on because this thing is going to happen again if they were to kiss and make up. Apparently, Trump has gotten rid of the Tesla from the White House that he bought a couple of months ago when they were madly in love. But yeah, I know, Laura, you predicted it would happen next year, I guess. I was kind of thinking it wouldn't last too long. I don't know if I'm on record making a prediction about it happening this year, but those two personalities are just not going to coexist.
Right, because they're just two old, white, rich guys. And it's like a pissing contest at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get billionaires with big egos in a room together. So, yeah, I really thought that it was going to be like a few months situation, just because honestly, I figured that would be the case for most of his cabinet, because I just assumed that he would be fire happy like he was last time he was in office. He really couldn't keep a cabinet to save his life for more than a couple months. And honestly, like the most shocking thing so far is that he hasn't fired more cabinet members.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's because this time he is actually completely surrounded by yes men, whereas last time that wasn't totally the case. There were still some people who had like a base level of principle and were like, wait a second, there are rules, but we don't have that anymore. The guardrails are off.
Like you said, Laura, the guardrails are off, and this is how we end up with a situation like what we have in LA right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. We definitely wanted to bring that up because there's obviously been a ton of focus in the press about Trump and Elon, but I think rightfully so. A lot of that attention has shifted to what's happening in LA because it's the playbook that I think we all and people who are way more informed than we are here have been calling out for a long time, which is that the administration is looking to provoke scenarios that will allow them to go through sort of authoritarian militaristic channels of controlling people. So they targeted LA with all of these massive ICE raids. The people, of course, responded and rose up. And for the most part, protests are peaceful. I think like with any kind of protest and public demonstration, stuff moves very quickly. And there's always a lot of attempt to paint these things as like black and white. But the reality is LA is a huge city and protests were cropping up everywhere. But for the most part, I've seen footage and protests were largely just people demonstrating and not doing anything. And it seems like, at least from what I have seen, where violence, or maybe what could be construed as violence, really starts ramping up when the police tear gas crowds that are peacefully assembling to make them disperse. So there's a lot of that going on in response to the fact that LA as a city and as a county has not been terribly cooperative with ICE. Mango Mussolini called in the National Guard, despite the fact that the state's governor, Gavin Newsom, did not request that. Generally speaking, the president would not make that kind of move without a state's governor requesting it. But you had both the state's governor, you had members of the county commission, you also had the mayor of LA saying, nope, we're not asking for that. Decided to try and send them in anyway. Now they're wanting to get Marines in there. It's just...
The thing that stands out for me is the LAPD was not overwhelmed by the protests that were happening to begin with. And Trump decided to bring in the National Guard and the Marines to flare up the situation because he wants a fight with Californians. He wants a fight with Governor Newsom. And now we're in this mess where it's like two sides are pointing fingers at each other, trying to figure out who started it, when it's very clear to us that it was Trump. It's your First Amendment right to protest. And yes, protests might get a little messy. That's protest. And that's not to say people should be losing their businesses or people should be harming others. That should definitely not be happening, the latter. But this is what happens. I don't. And the other thing that drives me crazy about this is that when Newsom was looking for help during the California wildfires, Trump was reluctant to send in help. Now he's forcing, quote unquote, help on California when they don't want it. And all it does is make tensions flare up. So it's just evil.
Yeah, it's really just being done so that they can keep saying that, I mean, that whole statement he put out on Truth Social, it's inciting language, not lost on anyone. I think that he used the term insurrectionists in relation to what's going on in California. How convenient, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all a ploy to make the other side look more violent than it is so that they can keep going with their agenda. And that's simply not the case. It's an awful situation all around. The immigration system has been fucked for a really long time, but it's just awful under this administration in particular.
To the point where LA County, I just heard about this before we hopped on to this call, Pam. LA County just announced that they're going to be staffing school resource officers outside, like having them make perimeters around all the schools in the county, because we're coming up on like graduation ceremonies and like lots of end of year festivities. And they don't want families to be intimidated out of coming to those things at schools. So they are actively training school resource officers to rebuff ICE if they start coming and trying to do raids at schools.
Yeah, it's you could be doing everything by the book. My family actually just knows we have a family friend whose son was trying to gain citizenship for his wife, who is an asylum seeker. They called her in and with her daughter, and they're being deported. And they were doing everything by the book. That literally happened last week. It's been awful to hear about that. And
I'm so sorry.
I mean, even with being in a sanctuary city like San Francisco, just the way that these institutions are being asked to operate is really inhumane. The not feeding anybody that they have detained except for snacks and like once a day, having children sleep on the floor, and then corralling them all to for-profit detention centers in Texas when they have enough people. It's awful. And it's really disgusting to see people that really haven't done anything wrong, especially if you're somebody that's seeking asylum or just trying to get a better life for yourself, basically being treated like a criminal.
Yeah.
With no dignity.
That was really, really well put, Pam. Let's all mark our calendars so that 50 years from now, we can say which side of this we were on.
Yeah.
And pay attention to others. Don't forget what side they were on.
And obviously, we hope that this de-escalates. But when the president of the United States is making it difficult to do that, you also understand why the people of California and Los Angeles are so up in arms right now. So
and also just trying to take away your First Amendment right to protest.
Right.
The fact that that's what this really comes down to. Even if you don't believe in like people coming here illegally for whatever reason, you should at least be terrified that this government deems it so easy to try and silence people from exercising a right that we are all born with when we're born in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And strong arming people out of that right as well by trying to use, troops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to borrow a phrase Trump likes to use for about January 6th, it's a beautiful day over in Los Angeles. It's just beautiful. There's so much love happening over there. And actually, there is.
Yeah. And honestly, if you, again, like, I would encourage you to go on like TikTok or go on YouTube shorts or reels. Like, people are posting their live footage from these protests, and things are overall very peaceful. People are just kind of standing around.
Yeah, it's
like,
quite boring to watch these live streams.
Yeah, like
in a good way.
Just congregating. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they're playing music and they're sharing little speeches. And also just to call out to give people a preview of what the weekend might look like, Britt is pointing out that Trump has been throwing a fit about protests this coming Saturday. He's throwing that stupid-ass military/birthday parade this weekend in Washington, D.C., and he doesn't want to see anybody protesting it. Anybody protesting will be met with force. Which, let's hope that merely standing out with a sign is not considered inappropriate in Trump's book. So we'll see what happens. Being an optimist, tend to think that he's going to be too distracted with his big, beautiful, perfect, amazing parade, which will surely have record-breaking crowds, the likes of which we have never seen. So I don't think he's going to really notice the protesters, but you don't know with this guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there are nationwide and actually some global protests planned for Saturday. They're the No King's Day protests because, spoiler alert, military parades are not common in Western democracies or in democracies in general. I feel like he's getting some inspiration from Russia, China, and North Korea.
100%.
Yeah.
When I hear military parade, I think of North Korea. When you see those parades, that's what I'm picturing this weekend happening here.
Right. Is it just not enough to just roll them out during the 4th of July? Every parade has like a tank or two. That's fine. But to like a showcase of strength is very much not what America is used to. So it's terrifying.
It's also giving like little dick energy. If I'm being honest, like, it reminds me of the guys who want to project this tough guy image through whatever car they drive or, whatever like accessories they tend to like adorn themselves with. And you can tell they're kind of trying to impress people around them and make themselves seem super manly. Anytime I see someone like that, my immediate thought is like, that guy must have a huge penis for how much he showed. Like, this very
Laura,
much feels
there's no
like
problems down there. Remember what I said during that 2015 debate? So this parade is estimated to cost taxpayers $45 million. I also read that they're going to have to repave roads that these tanks are rolling on because the roads are not meant for this extremely heavy-duty equipment. This is such a stupid cost to taxpayers in the world of, just weeks after, all this Doge chaos.
Yeah.
Anyway, how about a nice escape? Let's go to the movies this summer and try to take a mental health break from all of this. I wanted to give people a little warning, particularly if they go to AMC theaters. AMC has agreed to run more advertising in its theaters, ending its years-long opposition to commercials that come right before each movie. Other movie chains have done this. AMC has resisted because they thought it was going to really piss off their customers. Now, since everybody else is doing it, they're going to go along for the ride. Starting July 1st, AMC theaters will have a platinum spot that's shown on screens right before the start of a film. The theater chain, which has struggled financially, will get a cut of the ad sales, receiving what it described as vital revenue. So the reason I bring this up is because I don't know about you two, but I feel like the commercials and the trailers are taking up more and more time before the start of a movie. It's to the point I'm not walking into the theater until at least 20 minutes after the advertised start time of my movie. So if it's a 9:30 a.m. ticket putting this in terms Pam can understand because she likes going to the movie theaters in the morning. I'm not showing up till 9:50. Do you two have this problem?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've been doing that too. And all of the theaters are making it so easy to do that because it's all assigned seating now post COVID. So I guess like the only time that maybe I wouldn't do that is if I'm going to a PM showing, which Andrew, hold on to your pearls, that sometimes it happens. No, and the only reason I would show up early is because I don't like confrontation. I don't want to be put in a situation where somebody forgot to buy tickets last minute and then they think they can come and sit in my seat and be like, well, can you just find another seat? It's like, no, because I paid for this and I'd like to sit here. And so would my friend. But yeah, it's that's it. In the morning though, when like the theater's not super packed, I'm rolling up too. Like I'll even like buy the ticket there. That's like without even purchasing in advance.
We usually get there for the actual theatrical trailers, not all of the like Nuvi and Fandango advertisement type shit ahead of it. But we're usually there by the first or second trailer.
Okay. I just don't care about the trailers because I can see all of these online. And do you guys remember back in the day? And I'm only talking about like 10 years ago. They used to premiere trailers truly at the movies, and you had to go to see a movie to watch a specific trailer. Like, oh my God, the trailer for Breaking Dawn Part 2 is premiering with, I don't know, Monsters Inc. 2 or whatever. I gotta go see Monsters Inc. 2 to see that trailer. They used to use trailers as a way to incentivize you to actually go to the movies. That's not the case anymore. They want all the attention from the internet, not in the theater.
It's cool to see them on the big screen still. If it's again like a packed house, I do like to hear the reaction from other moviegoers just to see, because sometimes I feel like I'm like a little too out of touch with what people are actually interested in going to check out, and so it's a nice temperature gauge for me just to hear if other people are excited for the same things that I assume they'll be excited for.
Yeah.
Sometimes the trailer comes on and you think like, oh, surely everyone's going to want to go see this, or like nobody's going to go see that. And people are like either freaking out or completely silent. So
yeah,
I love that.
I feel like for me, like the definitive time that I want to be in the theater, I want to have my butt in the seat by the time the house lights go down, which is when the theatrical trailers start, because I usually like to sit center house. So like halfway back, right in the middle. Right? I feel like I get the best view, the best sound there. And I hate crawling over people to get to my seat in the dark. So I like to be there while the lights are still on so that it's not as much of like a hindrance to people. I just hate crawling in front of them when the lights are down.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm interrupting.
Are most theaters near you not recliners? Because I feel like most of the ones near me now have reclining seats. So that has made that a little bit easier. But I still feel like an asshole if I'm blocking the screen. So,
it's like 50-50
okay,
for us.
Yeah.
Sometimes
But
I'll
to
like
that point,
leave
Laura,
to the left, but come back to the right. So I'm bothering different groups of people on my way in
that's
and out.
cute.
Like if I'm
I
going
like
to the
that.
bathroom, I mean.
Yeah. I was going to say just really quickly that speaking of the lights, I've noticed that I think that the theaters that I tend to frequent, they know people are sick and tired of how many ads they have to roll beforehand. And they're really not dimming the lights until the actual feature presentation is starting.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Or they're like half dim during the actual trailers and then they dim.
See. Yeah. It's to the point where like sometimes the trailers will be rolling and I thinking to myself, like, are they going to turn the lights down lower? Because it's really bright in here.
Yeah. And like the quality of the trailers is bad. And you're like, wait, is this how the whole movie's going to look? Because this is going to suck.
Yeah. And I have the opposite problem with credits, because I feel like they immediately bring the house lights up in a lot of cases as soon as credits roll, even if there's an after credit scene. And I'm like, if there's an after credit scene and you know there is, you should leave the lights out.
Yeah, but all the non-nerds are leaving the theater as soon as the credits start to roll.
I know.
So, including me, I have no patience for those post-credit scenes anymore. Mid-credit, okay. But I'm not staying through the whole movie just to see an extra 5 seconds. That tells me absolutely nothing. But I've been going to the movie theater quite a bit recently, and that's after like a 6-month dry spell. I saw Lilo and Stitch, which was pretty good. Saw the final Mission Impossible, which was also pretty good. Saw Sinners, which was also really, really good. That was one of those movies I just heard so much talk about online. I was like, I gotta go see this. Have you two been to the theater lately for any summer movies?
Yeah. Actually, I've been to the movies more, kind of like you, Andrew. I've been there more lately in the last few months. I saw Captain America. I saw Thunderbolts, and I most recently saw Sinners. And I'm going to be going in the next couple of days to see like a short run anime movie that's only in theaters for like a week.
It does feel like the summer movies are back. Like when I look at what's coming out, it feels like every other week there's something big. So
yeah. So How to Train Your Dragon, the live action remake, comes out this weekend. A new Pixar movie called Elio comes out June 20th. Megan 2.0 comes out June 27th. Jurassic World Rebirth, which I'm actually probably most excited for in this list, comes out July 2nd. Cool. It does look good. Some of the Jurassic World movies have not been good at all, but this one I'm cautiously optimistic about. Fantastic Four comes out July 25th. Happy Gilmore 2. I think this is just a Netflix exclusive. That comes out July 25th. Wanted to mention that one just because Happy Gilmore is obviously a very iconic film. What are you most excited for, y'all, on this list? Like, if you have to pick one, assuming there's one here that you're excited about.
I'm excited for Fantastic Four.
I hate to say this because I feel like it's such a slippery slope, but I do think that the How to Train Your Dragon live action adaptation actually looks really good. And it's like, I know, I hate to say it because I feel like I'm also suffering from these live action fatigues. I also saw the Lilo and Stitch live action. It was terrible.
Oh, really? I really liked it.
I didn't like it. No, but
I've heard
I was just thinking like maybe
rough things about it.
Wow.
It just feels like it just, I know none of them really need to happen, but out of all of them, it felt like it didn't need to happen. And then we went back and we watched like the animated version. It was like, oh, this one feels like it has so much more heart and depth than I feel like it was missing from the live action. So, but the How to Train Your Dragon actually, like, begrudgingly, I will admit, looks really good. And like, and then aside from that, I think probably Jurassic World Rebirth. I love a good action blockbuster in the summertime, even if it's bad. Like, if there's a new Fast and Furious movie, that I'm there.
I've never seen one of those, believe it or not.
Oh, that would be a fun rabbit hole for you to fall down, honestly.
How to Train Your Dragon, I'm going to see it, but the reason I am not too excited about it is it looks exactly like the animated version. It's even directed by the same guy. So it's like, what is the point of this if it looks the same and it's the same director not bringing a new vision to it? That frustrates me. Do something fresh.
But then Lilo and Stitch was like basically the same thing. And you said you liked it.
I did. I also did bring a flask of gin, so I don't know if that was playing into it.
Blue Sapphire gin for Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, no. Just the Kirkland probably, but that would have been a good idea.
I did hear, and I haven't seen it yet, but I did hear that there were some like key decisions made in the live action Lilo and Stitch that kind of changes the narrative from the original that people didn't like.
Yeah, they took out like some cross-dressing that people were upset about because they thought it was too risque. And then they took out a lot of like the underlying conversation of how like tourism hurts the island.
Oh, well, they shouldn't have done the latter. In terms of the cross-dressing, that one character was still dressed like a woman. I saw that backlash too, and then I saw the movie. I'm like, what are people complaining about? That guy still wore like a dress.
Yeah.
It wasn't maybe as feminine as it was in the animated movie. Mm-hmm. But this is a live action remake. That's what you get. It's a remake.
That's true.
It's a new vision for the story.
And they had to fill some extra time.
Right.
So, I mean, to that point, if the runtime for How to Train Your Dragon live action is longer than the runtime for the animated, then they had to have added more to the story. But that franchise, like, is like, it goes beyond the movie trilogy. and I'm not like fully immersed in the like the deep ins and outs of the How to Train Your Dragon universe, but I know some people that are really into it, and like they can tell you how like the TV shows like intersect with the movies and so on and so forth. So they have a lot of lore to pull from.
And now I'll land at Universal Epic Universe.
Yeah.
The live action one is a half hour longer. So yeah, there will be more, but more is not necessarily better. If it's a half hour of the boring scenes, then bleh. Well, listeners, let us know what you're most excited for. And please, throughout the summer, send in your reviews of any of these movies that you're going to see. We would love to hear those reviews. This show is brought to you by listeners like you, thanks to recent patrons, including Kimberly, Courtney, and Akalia. Visit patreon.com/millennial to support us for as little as $5 a month, and you can get instant access to perks like After Dark. This week, we'll be sharing personal stories that tie into today's main discussions that we're going to get into in a couple of minutes. They're stories that are too hot for public, unchecked consumption, so they will be behind the paywall safely where we can check who's listening. You can also get access to ad-free episodes, our live streams, and so much more. And by the way, when you become a patron, you'll be able to listen to all of our bonus audio content right within your favorite podcast app.
Yeah, so just become a patron and you get immediate access to our podcasting safe space. If you're ever curious, you can do that by going to patreon.com/millennial and get started today with a 7-day free trial to check out all of the aforementioned bonus content, including After Dark, and annual subscription discounts are also available.
Other ways to support us include heading over to shop.millennialshow.com, which is where you can pick up official show gear. You can also tell a fellow millennial about the show, and also make sure you're following us in your favorite podcast app, because that really helps us out.
Coming up in a second, discussion online about transactional versus social graces. We'll be right back.
So this week I wanted to talk about transactional versus social graces. And this is something that I feel like has come up very loosely in the show before, but we never really dug deeper into it. So I thought that this would be a good time to do it, because it really seems like everywhere you turn these days online, there are people ruminating over what the proper protocol is when, you know, our friends ask us for favors and vice versa. So some recent examples I've seen pop up online was like what to do if you're staying over at a friend's apartment when you're in their town visiting. There was this whole thread on Twitter about this that went viral, and it kind of started because the original poster was basically saying, like, if you're staying at a friend's house, the least you can do is like buy them a bottle of wine to say thank you. Which is where like this idea of like transactional comes into play. Now people were arguing for or against whether or not you need to do anything, but I do think that, like, at the very least, we can all agree that you should at least be a gracious guest and let your friend know that you're so thankful that they would open their home to you, whether that's like buying them a drink when you go out to dinner at the very least, or maybe like offering to cook for them if you guys are staying in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's different ways you can do that for sure.
Another polite way, I think, is just if you are staying the night, make your bed the following morning.
Yeah.
So it's like a brand new room that you didn't
like
sleep in.
Strip the sheets too when you leave.
That's usually what I do. I usually strip the sheets off and like get them in a nice bundle with the fitted sheet, right? So they can be easily transported to the laundry room.
Yeah. Fold
and
up the
I will do that
blanket
if they want me to.
Yeah. If you like, especially if it's like a pull-out couch, or make the bed like Andrew was saying, or, you know, because I've offered to do that too before. Like, I'll just say, hey, like I stripped the bed. Do you want me to help you make the bed? Like, you just point me to the sheets. I'm happy to do that.
I'm always really touched when I go back into the guest bedroom after somebody stayed and the bed is all made up, like they were never there. That's just a thoughtful, silent, kind gesture to me that goes a long way.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's something that I noticed for sure, whether it's family or friends that are staying over.
Yeah,
it's always more about how you leave the space, but especially if you know that space is like a space that they have to use. So like some people's guest bedroom also doubles as an office, for example. Like if that person realizes that you might have to go in there, and so then they're making the bed so you don't have to come into a messy room for whatever reason. I always think that's a extra nice touch.
Yeah. So there are ways to do this without spending money. This person who you referred to in the tweet added, if you cannot afford anything lavish and are staying out of desperation, just be honest with them. You could say, quote, thank you for taking me in when I'm in such a tough spot. I can't wait to make it up to you. Just let them know. And then they might say, oh, you don't have to give me anything. You don't have to do anything for me. It's totally fine. I'm just happy to do it. And then you're kind of off the hook. But you could also still give them something in return down the road anyway.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think quality time is also an acceptable way to demonstrate that you're grateful for somebody letting you crash on their couch, even for a night. Like, spend some time hanging out with that friend, play a game with them, have a long conversation with them. Like, I think there are ways, again, like to what was raised before, that you can demonstrate your thankfulness without having to spend any money.
When I went over to Manchester a couple weeks ago, my friend and his partner picked me up from the airport, which is an hour drive each way, and let me stay at their house for a night. So I bought them dinner that night. We were planning on going out anyway. I bought them dinner at a pizza place because I was so grateful. And it seemed to genuinely surprise them that I bought them dinner, but they saved me a lot of money on transportation from the airport. They saved me money one night on a room. So you're saving so much money, you can instead put a fraction of that towards a kind gesture for somebody. And then it kind of pays dividends too, because then you're setting yourself up in the future like, oh yeah, we should have Andrew over again because he's probably going to buy us dinner one night.
Yeah. And I think your friends also showed the importance of being a gracious host. Like, I think as a host or as someone who's doing someone a favor, I think that we should all approach that just as a good deed for the sake of doing a good deed and out of the genuine goodness of our heart without expecting anything in return, but then being pleasantly surprised when we do get that recognition back, because that, I think it kind of shows you who recognizes that relationships are two-way streets in that way. Whereas if you have someone who's like chronically taking and taking and taking and never reciprocating with you, maybe that's someone you need to have some boundaries with, you know?
Yeah. Now I'm trying to remember if I made the bed the following morning. Crap.
I'm sure you did.
I hope so. He kept talking to me after that, so I guess I did.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up your friends going to pick you up at the airport, because that's another one that comes up a lot in conversations like this. Just the idea of not only driving your friend to the airport, but also like asking if your friend can drive you to the airport. This is actually weirdly a heated topic online. Like, you have some people that are like, why would you ask? I think that this also happens a lot in like large metropolitans like LA, where there's a lot of rush hour traffic. So people are saying like, why would you ask your friend to drive you to the airport when you know that that's such a huge inconvenience, and then they're going to have to sit there and like wait in traffic just to go back to their house after they've done this. I feel like that, like, I get it, because that's like a love language in and of itself. And to that point, the most recent example of this conversation coming up that I came across on TikTok was actually a spoken word poem about it. And Andrew's going to play this now. So
I will always drive to the airport for you, because one day we won't live in the same city and the question won't even be on the table. I will wake up at the same time as I did when I was a barista so you can catch the first flight out of here. I will stay up with the bartenders and the hospital workers so that you can eke out all the travel time you can and catch the last flight back. I will drive you in protest of the rideshare apps and the commodification of friendship. Venmo will not exist when your carry-on is in the back of my car. At a time in my life when I see most of my friends through the cell bars of a 9x16 frame, or not at all, of course I will drive you to the airport.
Okay, so I do think this was very sweet, other than the deadpan vocal fry that the guy had. So why I like this is it takes an emotional approach to remind you to appreciate moments with friends that you currently have physical, local access to, because one day you might not have that, especially when it comes to friends, right? You never know who might be moving away one day. And I think that's a great way to think of it, because you don't know what you have until it's gone. I think when it comes to the airport thing, which really seems to rattle people, one reason that people don't like that idea is because typically having to drive someone to the airport or pick someone up at the airport comes at an inconvenient time. Maybe it's like in the middle of the workday or very early in the morning or very late at night, because with those last two, that's when the cheapest flights are. And of course, yeah, at a lot of airports, it tends to be like a pretty busy area that you have to navigate. But I don't know. It's easy-ish to drive around here. So personally, I do not mind doing that type of thing. And I think, as I've said on the show previously, I like doing these favors for friends without any sort of exchange in favors, because it's an excuse for me to get out of the house. I spend a little time with my friend. I like that I'm helping them.
Yeah. I think that if you, honestly, I hate to be the asshole. I think it depends on how far away you live from an airport too. Like how often this person is potentially taking advantage of your kindness for doing this, you know? And so my whole thing is like, you know, if I have somebody that's visiting, and we're coordinating the visit. So this person's going to either stay with me or spend, a stretch of time with me. I always say like, okay, like, I could pick you up from the airport, but I would appreciate it if you could fly into this specific airport, if at all possible, because the other way around is just a lot further. And I always take special notice of the people that will try to accommodate that, because it is not all airports are created equal. And then also like living out in the Bay Area, it's like you're talking not only like travel time, but also like bridge toll. And then also, since I don't live too close to the airport, it's like if you get delayed, then that's a whole nother thing. So there's a little bit more that goes into it. And then sometimes it's like, oh, like, man, I have a really busy day. Like if you really want to fly in this day, then like I can't pick you up and I'm really sorry, but can you take the train halfway? And some people are like really scared of public transportation and won't do that. And so that I feel kind of guilted into having to go get them. But yeah, it's like, it's a mixed bag for me, the airport thing. But if I have the time, like and I know that you're not like, again, taking advantage of the kindness, then I don't mind doing it. It's just, it's a little bit more of a hassle, I think. If you don't live like super close. Because like how far away are you from your airport? Maybe like 30 minutes?
Yeah, 30, maybe 40.
For me, it's a little over an hour without traffic.
That is
far. Really far.
I will plus say, crossing the bridges, you know.
Yeah, you have all the tolls. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah,
it sounds like Pam, you do mind, Pam.
Because I will go. Like if you called me and said, "Hey, can you come pick me up?" I'd be like, "Of course." Like,
who's you? Me? Know? Or just like anybody?
Either of you.
Okay.
Either of you. But I would like, if you had like, if we were planning it, I'd be like, yes, but like, what airport are you looking at? Can you check the rates at this other airport? And if it's like comparable, I might just say, hey, do you mind flying into this other one instead?
Yeah, I can understand that. I feel like I too have an asterisk that I'll put on this topic.
Because of Atlanta, the Atlanta traffic. I get it.
Dude, and I don't even live that far from the airport. I'm within 30 minutes of the airport without traffic. And I would happily come pick either one of y'all up at the airport. But if your flight gets in during rush hour, I'm going to say to you with peace and love to get on MARTA. And I will tell you the stop to come to, and I will pick you up at that stop.
Okay. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
A little public transit to save you a little bit of time. Personally, I don't mind public transit. The problem with a place like LA is that there is no public transit, really. You could take the buses, but that's going to take a really long time.
And that's why I say that that's love. If you'll say, like, no questions asked. But, like, living in LA is way different, you know?
It is. And I still vividly remember having to take my ex or a friend from time to time to the airport, and that is an experience going to the airport.
Yeah. And my whole thing too is like, because I also like for a while was living in like closer to like the OC, right? It's like, okay, like do you have to fly out of LAX? Like, let's like, have you checked Long Beach? Have you checked SNA? like, have we exhausted all these options? Because I know you don't really want to go to LAX, but like, are you actually looking at these other airports? And I also know that you don't want to get stuck at any of these other airports because there's not very much to do. But let's exhaust our options here.
Are you sure?
Are you sure you want to fly out of LAX?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I get it. Like, if that's the only airport close to you, like that's the reality of the situation. And yeah. But I had someone once, like, I had a friend once that I asked, like, hey, can you take the train? Like, Laura, like, can you take it to this stop and then I'll come get you? And they said, no, because I'm scared of getting lost and I wear glasses. So my eyesight is like not great.
See,
so can you just come pick me up? And I was like, you literally can't get lost. You just you get on this train and this is the only stop. And they were like, no, but I'm scared. And I was like, okay, I will come get you, but you'll have to wait so because annoying. Yeah, it was also like I was working like a not from home. So it was more of like I don't want you to have to wait at the airport for like 3 hours. You want to just come here and then I'll just get you right after work. And by the time like I get off, you'll be here. It'll work out. But this person was like adamant. And so they actually opted to wait at the airport for, I think it was like almost 4 hours so that I could go get them because they didn't want to take public transportation.
At least they waited. But I feel like if you're in that type of scenario that Pam's describing, you should be willing to meet Pam in the middle and, take the public transit for a little while. We should also add what Britt, again, is saying in the Discord. I live in Indiana and the airport is 90 plus minutes away and there's no public transit to even meet partway. So for all this talk online about the airport thing and how we're discussing it, there's probably plenty of listeners out there who are nowhere near a major airport and are like,
I know.
Yeah, no, I am not driving 90 minutes to 2 hours to go pick up a friend from the airport. They can find a way here themselves, a rental car or something.
Yeah, so like I think that like this is proof, like even just amongst our little trio here and the people that are listening, that a lot of these social scenarios, the biggest thing they have in common is people can't really agree on whether it's okay to like ask for these favors or like whether it's like a hindrance or an annoyance or whether it's a faux pas. And I think that is really like the interesting part of like the underlying tone of all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what's just so weird about all of it, and I was telling y'all this in the planning meeting, it's weird to me that this kind of, the whole conversation around this has become very quid pro quo. Like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And I'm like, okay, well, I think that's like maybe oversimplifying what it means to have like a reciprocal relationship with another human being where like you're members of a community and you're supporting each other. But it does really feel like, especially here in the States, I don't know if others in other countries feel the same way, but it definitely feels like everything is commodified and like there's scorekeeping. It's very bizarre.
And I also just don't like the fact that I feel like the loudest voices are basically like shaming people out of asking for help from their friends.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like you're a bad friend if you ask. Like, I don't think you're a bad friend if you ask.
Are people really saying that?
That's like the underlying tone is kind of like, don't be taking advantage of your friends like this. It's like, but I wouldn't see it as taking advantage.
Yeah.
What would be taking advantage is you making somebody feel bad if they really couldn't do you the favor for whatever reason. Usually to be okay with like that person saying no, but I don't think there's any harm in asking.
Yeah. No.
And that kind of, I think, goes hand in hand with what Laura was saying about the quid pro quo. There should be like no harm in asking. You have to be okay with the person saying no, and you shouldn't expect, as the person doing the favor, that like it's going to be paid back to you within like a certain time frame.
Yeah. And you kind of feel out the situation the first or second time, right? If it's 2 no's in a row, then maybe you should lay off that person and or find another friend. But I feel like if you're afraid to ask a real friend, somebody you've known for a while, who you have a good relationship with, who is very good to you and vice versa, if you're afraid to ask that type of person, you got to check your self-doubt And or I think you need to take another look at your friends because I don't think it should be such a big deal to ask your friends for a favor, and they should be willing to help out from time to time. Of course, it's going to vary case to case. I'm setting aside the airport example at this point, but your friends should always be willing to help you in some regard. That's what friendship is for.
Is this a generational thing? Do we think, is it becoming a generational thing? Like, do we think there were different societal norms, like for our parents, for example, when they were our age or
Probably,
younger?
because I feel like you're saying it's kind of getting worse with being afraid to ask.
Yeah. But I wonder, like, how much of it is the internet? You know, like the internet sometimes always makes everything seem a little
That's
bleaker.
what I was just going to say. I think it's kind of conditioned people to be nervous about asking people because you might see a horror story or two on TikTok. And then, of course, with social media, we all are gaining so much self-doubt and comparing ourselves to others. And it's just like, I don't know if I should be asking my friend at this point, because what if it ends up the same way I'm hearing about online? And we've all become more isolated, right? Whereas our parents and older generations, they were probably spending more time together. So that probably helped as well.
I don't feel
That's true.
like I see things like independent attempts to communicate or to organize within smaller communities. Like something that I heard about, like growing up in the South all the time, was this idea of meal trains. Like, so if someone had a death in the family or had fallen on hard times, a lot of people in the community would sign up for a meal train schedule. And it was basically, we're like preparing this person's meals so that they are covered and they don't have to think about that. They can just like pop it in the microwave or in the oven for a couple of weeks while they get on their feet. Right. And I don't know that I hear as much of that going on in our age group. At the same time,
you know what
like,
it is? It's everybody just gives a DoorDash gift card. And I know this from personal experience. But that feels so cold.
Yeah.
It's like someone dies and they're like, and somebody always says, oh no, don't bring food because they have too much in the fridge. Just bring a gift card.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I did the DoorDash thing for my parents who live on the other side of the country when they lost both of their dogs a few months ago. So that, you know, if you live far away, then a DoorDash situation makes sense. When our neighbor had her firstborn 2 years ago, Pat, made her dinner and brought it over. Same thing with other neighbors over the course of our relationship. I think that's a simple, really kind gesture. And something like, you know, let's say lasagna, you can put it in storage for a while until you actually need the food. It'll keep for a while if you keep it in the freezer or the fridge.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, like, I don't know, this might be a cultural thing, but like when my grandma passed, like we actually welcomed the extra food because the food was really, it became less about feeding ourselves and more about feeding people that stopped by.
Oh, yeah.
And not having to worry about like not having anything to offer them. So it was like, oh, this person brought this, great. Whoever stops by today is going to eat this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cultures are so different because I think like especially like in Latin culture, it's like, oh, something tragic happened, like let's feed you, because that's like the quickest way to your heart is your stomach. My aunt was like the second day or something, she was like, we need comfort food, I'm making soup. And so it's like very much that mindset. But then in contrast, my friends, my brother's friends, my mom's friends who know us or like knew my grandma through us, like they were all like, oh, like let's send flowers. And I think that's very American.
Yeah.
Or it's become very American.
And then you end up with a house full of flowers that you're like, what are we supposed to do with all these?
Yeah, I started appreciating the potted plants, some of which are still alive. So thanks to those people who said potted plants. I wanted to read this part of a comment from Britt, who said people are also bastardizing boundaries to get out of doing things for friends, not including people taking advantage or outrageous requests. And I think that that's a big thing. The therapy speak on the internet has gotten really out of control. And then people who feed too much into the online discourse get it in their head that's like, oh, like actually, yeah, this person asking this was not taking my feelings into account on this specific day. And that's a breach of my boundaries, which is so silly because it's really not that deep.
No. No, I mean, I think something that I personally struggle with is the feeling that I'm a burden on other people. And maybe it comes from so many years being antisocial / not having friends, stemming back to like middle school. But I have always felt like I can be a burden on people. So maybe that's what many people are feeling as well. Even like last year, hosting my birthday party, asking anybody to do something for me feels like, oh my God, I'm inconveniencing them. Even to come to a birthday party, I have felt like I'm inconveniencing people. And for that reason, I've paid for the cabana both times, both birthdays that I've done this. The second year I split it with a friend, so it wasn't as bad, who was also celebrating a birthday. But yeah, and I think maybe that comes back to isolation, which we all experienced during COVID.
I have this note in here about acts of service, which is a love language. Do you think that your love language is acts of service? Because I know mine is.
A little bit.
I would feel bad, like you burdening people, like asking for help is hard. But I have no problem helping people.
That's interesting.
And doing things for people.
I don't
is I think how I show love in part.
I don't like to say I have like a top love language, a single
Most
top.
People have a few.
Okay.
So
I would probably say
sense.
Words of affirmation and acts of service maybe would be my top two.
Those are my two too.
Okay.
I think yours are, you do have like an acts of service thing, because I feel like that shows up in like even in working relationships, like you're always around to help if we have any questions and stuff like that. And
yeah,
that's still like, I think that
help.
Like we're aware that like it's taking time out of your day if we have a question that we need help with too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I also feel like some of this, and this is just my personal theory, some of this is older sibling shit, because I too have a really hard time asking for help. There will be points where, I mean, the people who are closest to me will be able to see that I need help with something, and they'll be like, you can ask for help, right? And I'm like, no, I can't. I don't want to.
This conversation that we're having feels like the type of thing that maybe should have been taught in school through maybe like an interpersonal communication class. And in today's modern world, the class could have been called like What We'll Teach You Before TikTok Does 101, because I feel like we learn so much more now on the internet that we should have learned in school, be it finances, interacting with others, planning for the future, be it financial or buying a home or whatever. Like there's just so many things I feel like we should have been taught. And now we're all finally talking about it through TikTok, Instagram Reels, etc.
Which is funny because they do grade children on socialization skills, like through early childhood development.
Yeah.
But then at some point they stop, and then some people just like, some of us just stay awkward and we don't know how to socialize.
Right.
So.
Yeah. To be honest, and again, this is another theory of mine, I really think this is one of the ways that hyper-focusing on STEM fields as like the only successful fields and kind of diminishing or putting the humanities on the back burner, I think has had an impact on people's ability to show up in public and exist in a fucking society.
Yeah.
So, we just spent a good deal of time talking about the ways in which social graces have shifted over time and how we're seeing it show up now. Next week, we're actually going to be coming back to a part 2 of this discussion to talk about other societal shifts that we have noticed both since our childhood, but also since COVID. And it's not just our own anecdotal observations. We've got some data to back it up from the Pew Research Center. So y'all know I'm going to be really excited to dig into that. So definitely join us next week. We're going to talk about some of the top offensive behaviors that people are reporting in public now. Things like smoking around others and taking photos or videos of someone without asking for permission. This one is very relevant based on some conversations we've had on the show recently. So very excited to chat about that.
There's a fight brewing in my neighborhood that I might have a story about next week. I was ready to pop off on somebody last night. I wasn't going to shoot them. That sounds like I was going to shoot them. I was going to verbally attack them politely, or at least attempt to. But maybe that'll happen. This will be my homework for the upcoming week. Have this altercation with a neighbor, so I have a good story for Millennial next week.
Perfect.
Coming up in After Dark this week, we will expand on what we've been talking about today more. Like I said earlier in the episode, we have some stories to share from our personal lives that we thought everybody would enjoy hearing, and I'm sure we'll have some discussions as we share these stories with one another. Don't forget, you can email millennialshow@gmail.com or use the contact form on millennialshow.com to get in touch with us. You can also leave a comment on Spotify or YouTube or DM us on social. And if you enjoy Millennial, we would appreciate a review in your favorite podcast app. Time for recommendations. The Nintendo Switch 2 came out last week. I was there day one for Nintendo Switch 1 back in 2017, and it gave me a new appreciation for video games, thanks in part to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I had to be there for day one of Nintendo Switch 2. I had pre-ordered from Target, but they let me down. They weren't going to get it to me release day. So Andy camped out at Best Buy for 4 hours. I texted Laura a greasy ass selfie of me. I said, I need you and Mark to know I'm in line for Nintendo Switch 2 at Best Buy.
Wow. When was the last time you camped out for an electronic?
Oh, an electronic?
It's been a while, right?
Yeah, I don't know the last time. Nintendo Switch 1 I had delivered to me release day. I did camp out for a PlayStation 3 back in the day. Oh, probably an iPhone. That may have been the last one. I don't know. It's been a while, though.
So a while.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a great new system, noticeably better than Nintendo Switch 1 in terms of the speed of it, how good everything looks. Even the Nintendo Switch 1 games are looking really, really good on this. Some of them required updates to work better with Switch 2. Others didn't. They just work right out of the box a lot better on Switch 2. So my recommendation is, I know it's expensive. If you've been on the fence about a Switch 2, get it. You will notice the differences. The new Mario Kart is a lot of fun. Obviously, this is the future for Nintendo, so invest in it now. And sell your Switch 1 while it's still worth something.
I just have to add here, Andrew, I'm kind of surprised that Target, well, not surprised, disappointed that they dropped the ball on you during Pride Month.
I know.
That feels really homophobic to me.
And it seemed like anybody who pre-ordered through Target, was not getting it on release day, whereas other retailers were. So I don't know why. Target's been in hot water recently, and now they've pissed off the video game nerds too. Well, good job, Target.
Yeah, you're pissing off the gays and the video game nerds. I mean...
The gays, the gamers, the gamers.
I want to recommend Andor on Disney Plus. I'm recommending this in particular as someone who is increasingly disappointed with The Last of Us Season 2 the more time that passes since the finale. And we decided to finally get on the Andor train because it's been recommended to me by basically everyone in my life. And we binged season 1 in like 2.5 days. They're mostly really short, action-packed, like 30-minute episodes, and the story is so good. So if you haven't seen Andor, definitely don't be like me and put it off any longer. Check it out now.
Also, Andor, the show, is very reflective of what's happening in the real world right now.
Yep.
And not in a way that, like, if you watch it, you're going to be depressed about what's happening in America. But I think it's really inspiring to watch how the characters of Andor handle this and run their rebellion.
And I also wanted to recommend a TV show. I wanted to recommend Overcompensating on Prime Video. If you're looking to get more out of your Prime membership and you haven't checked out anything over on their streaming platform in a while, this is a good one to check out. It's 8 episodes, season 1, and it's a half-hour comedy. It's super funny, and it's a good binge for Pride Month specifically because it stars Benito Skinner, who also wrote the show, as a character named Benny, who's a former high school jock, and he's also closeted, and he thinks he's going to go into college being a little more out and proud, and he gets there and he ends up reverting back into, like this jock persona he's been putting on forever and overcompensating that so that people don't find out he's gay. But it's a really, really funny show. And Skinner also stars in it, and it's semi-autobiographical. So it's a great, really easy binge if you're looking for something fun and a little bit raunchy too.
I started watching this because a couple friends were also super into it, Pam. And I agree. Great recommendation. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. You don't
It's
see
really
that too
good.
often for a TV show, especially one
Yeah.
on Amazon.
I know. They got a few hidden gems over there.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but a few.
Every once in a while, they got a good one.
Mhm.
After Dark starts in a moment for patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.